Hello, I'm Megan Lazovic, Vice President from Edison Research.
And I'm Allison Sprague, Head of Ad Measurement at Wondery, but I previously worked at Amazon Ads.
Yes, and I insisted Allison help present this research that she led earlier this year. Allison, thank you so much for taking a break from your day job to talk about all things streaming audio.
Of course, super happy to be here.
We have a lot to share today, and as we go, we'll have some team members available to answer your questions in the Q&A box. A replay of this webinar will be available on edisonresearch.com soon after we finish today. So if you're watching the replay or have any other questions after we wrap up, please reach out to us at info@edisonresearch.com.
Today, we're talking about a hot topic right now, streaming audio. Digitizing streaming audio caused a significant shift in how audio is consumed, shared, and enjoyed, leading to an audio revolution. In today's presentation, we'll talk about the 5 megatrends fueling this revolution.
We'll start with some background and methodology, then we'll dive into each of the 5 megatrends. Our hope is that brands can use this information to reach and engage consumers through audio messaging. Now, Edison Research has been in the audio measurement business since its founding in 1994. So we've been tracking changes as the audio landscape has evolved. Streaming audio gained prominence in the 2010s, providing listeners the opportunity to enjoy audio content digitally at scale for the first time. This change in distribution was the beginning of an evolution in audio.
Amazon Ads partnered with Edison Research to help brands uncover the top trends driving the streaming audio revolution and the opportunities these trends give to brands who want to better reach and engage consumers through advertising. With this research, brands will have a better understanding of one, the mega trends driving the shift in audio, and two, a better understanding of how and why brands can participate in this shift.
First, let's review the methodology and sources used in the study. We used a mixed methods research design, which includes meta analysis from the past 10 years of audio research. We looked at the Edison share of ear and infinite dial studies. We supplemented that information with current trends using a quantitative audio megatrend study and qualitative interviews. Participants opted in to take our survey and interviews in exchange for monetary compensation.
So, what's driving the audio revolution? Well, let's dive in and find out. Here are 5 megatrends taken from the past decade of audio research, which highlight the key drivers for the evolution of audio. First, streaming audio is thriving and likely to continue growing. We'll review the insights to support this takeaway in the next section.
Next, streaming audio offers brands new ways to reach and engage consumers.
Third, the evolution of audio is at least partially fueled by new audio technology.
Fourth, more options for audio content types and providers has led to increased reach and listening time.
And finally, new audio technologies have brought audio home, and in-home audio listening is likely here to stay. Now, let's dive deeper into each of these megatrends.
Starting with megatrend number 1, the evolution of audio is largely impacted by the growth in streaming audio. Streaming audio is thriving and likely to continue growing. What's our definition of thriving? Well, 75% of all US adults reported they have listened to streaming audio in the past month. This number represents 74% of growth in the past 10 years and 27% growth in the past 5 years. US adults spend an average of nearly 2 hours per day with streaming audio, which represents 41% share of their total audio listening each day. Share of streaming audio listening has grown 159% in the past 10 years and 26% in the past 3 years.
And streaming audio growth is happening at the expense of broadcast radio. In 2015, streaming audio accounted for only 34% share of ear, while broadcast radio accounted for nearly double that amount at 66% share. In 2020, share of streaming audio surpassed that of broadcast radio for the very first time. Streaming audio share of ear has consistently outperformed AM/FM radio ever since.
Much of the time spent with streaming audio is driven by younger adults. In the chart on the left, we see adults 18 to 34 spend approximately 174 minutes with streaming audio. That's nearly 3 hours. while adults 35 and older spend only 82 minutes or 1 hour and 22 minutes. Conversely, though, streaming audio's reach is growing fastest with the older adult population. Streaming audio reach has grown in the adult 18 to 34 age cohort by 18% in the past 3 years, while it has grown nearly 1.5 times that amount, or 24%, in adults age 35 and older.
While streaming audio has seen significant growth in the past few years, our research indicates it's not likely to slow down anytime soon. 24% of US adults reported they're likely to listen to streaming audio more in the next 3 years than they do today. And this growth is across all age cohorts, led by adults 18 to 34, but also prominent in adults 35-54 and in 55 plus adults.
One of the questions we wanted to better understand was why. Why is streaming audio growing so quickly? Our research indicates that ease of use and new music discovery are two reasons for streaming audio growing. 83% of streaming audio listeners agreed they use streaming audio because it is easy to use. And on the right, we see an example of how listeners are using streaming audio to discover new artists and songs. One 52-year-old male from Florida reported, streaming audio has just opened up more types of music. And I like it because you can tell it to play one song and then it will continue to play other songs that are similar. And it usually does a pretty good job. So I'll discover new artists. Through this research, we've seen not only that streaming audio is growing, but that it is likely here to stay. And brands that can make online listening easier with new music discovery more accessible may continue to grow faster than brands that do not.
Our second megatrend finding is that audio is evolving into a great vehicle for brands to reach, engage, and connect with consumers. 78% of monthly streaming audio listeners reported they heard brand messaging in one or more services they listened to. This means that a majority of streaming audio listeners are reachable with audio ads.
Brands may ask how reachable these streaming audiences are given subscription rates. Our research indicates that paid streaming audio subscriptions may decrease in the next 3 years, with 20% of paid subscribers reporting they plan to cancel their subscription. But even those consumers that do keep their ad free services are addressable with audio ads, as a majority, or 81%, of monthly streaming audio listeners in the US who reported having a paid streaming audio subscription also reported they listened to ad supported audio content.
As noted earlier, 20% of paid subscribers reported they plan to cancel their subscription in favor of the ad-supported listening experience. In our research, one 30-year-old female listener from Vermont reported they canceled their ad-free subscription because they felt that listening to ads in the ad-supported experience was not a big enough issue to pay for.
Streaming audio listeners are receptive to hearing brand messaging in their audio content. 63% of monthly streaming audio listeners reported that streaming audio ads are less disruptive than video messages. Streaming ads are also more likely to garner their attention than other digital media, according to 60% of streamers. And 55% of monthly streaming radio listeners also find ads on streaming services are more relevant than ads on terrestrial radio.
In our qualitative interviews, many consumers expressed a preference for the ad experience on streaming audio compared to radio. One 60-year-old male from Massachusetts reported, quote, on the streaming services that do have ads, it's a far superior experience to AM/FM radio, end quote. With 73% reach and a majority of listeners reporting they're amenable to hearing messaging in streaming audio content, streaming audio ads are a great way for brands to reach new potential customers. The third megatrend we uncovered from the past decade of audio research was that audio's evolution is at least partially fueled by new technologies. In the early 2000s, streaming audio listening on the go was fueled by an increased number of smartphone users. In the 2020s, streaming audio listening is fueled partially by smart speaker ownership.
Smart speaker ownership has grown over 400% in the past 6 years, moving from a niche smart home product to a mainstream household item for many American households. Smart speaker ownership is fueling audio evolution and growth by providing more reach, increasing time spent with streaming audio, and increasing tune in frequency. Smart speaker owners are more likely to be streaming audio listeners than non smart speaker owners. 91% of all US adults who own a smart speaker reported they have listened to streaming audio in the past month, which over indexes non smart speaker owners by 20%. Smart speaker owners also spend more time with audio content overall. Smart speaker owners spend nearly 5 hours per day with audio content, which over indexes non smart speaker owners by 18%. And lastly, smart speakers are adding more opportunities for streaming audio tune in. Nearly two-thirds, or 63%, of smart speaker owners reported they are listening to streaming audio content more frequently since purchasing their smart speakers.
And consumers use their smart speakers to listen to all different kinds of audio content, from music to podcasts and news. One 20-year-old male from Tennessee reported he listens to music when cleaning his room. He uses his smart speaker as a wireless speaker connected to his smartphone. However, when listening to news, he asks Alexa to open a news app. This is just one example of how smart speakers are helping fuel the change in audio consumption.
Next, we uncovered that more options for audio content and providers has increased online listening. Spoken word content is among the fastest growing content type in online listening. In 2014, US adults spent only 20% share of time on audio with spoken word content. In 2023, that number has grown to 29%, a 42% increase. We hypothesize this increase is due to increased spoken word content such as podcasts and audio based news services.
And speaking of news services, one of our findings was that smart speakers have helped change the way that many US adults consume news content. 66% of smart speaker owners reported they obtain news updates from the smart speaker at least weekly. 45% of smart speaker owners reported they listen to more news content since purchasing their smart speaker. And interestingly, over one third, or 36%, of all smart speaker owners get their news content exclusively from smart speakers. In addition to content types, the number of available audio services is also increasing listenership. In 2022, monthly streaming audio listeners reported they listened to an average 2.4 streaming audio services per month. Consumers with paid subscriptions listened to even more services, with an average of 2.9 per month. Consumers who reported using more than one service reported an average 30% longer listening time per week.
Our final megatrend has to do with where people are consuming audio content most. New audio technologies, as we've seen with smart speakers, have brought audio listening home, and that trend is likely to continue in the near future.
A majority, or 58%, of audio listening now occurs in the home and largely through connected devices. In home listening grew 21% from 2015 and has remained consistent since 2020, even after listeners have returned to pre pandemic routines. Our research indicates this trend is likely to continue, with 42% of consumers reporting they listen to audio content more frequently in the home now than they did pre pandemic.
We've covered a lot of information today. I'd like to remind everyone that a recording of this webinar will be available on edisonresearch.com along with the full report to download. But before we go, we'll summarize our key findings. We've learned through this report that streaming audio has helped fuel an audio revolution, changing the ways consumers listen, share, and enjoy audio content.
With the Audio and Evolution study, we've uncovered a variety of insights about how brands can use streaming audio to connect with new potential customers. We learned that streaming audio is thriving and likely to continue growing.
And that the growth is driven in part by new audiences, new content types, and new technology.
We learned that a majority of streaming audio listeners are reachable with audio ads.
Finally, we learned a majority of ad supported streaming audio listeners are amenable to and likely respond to audio based brand messages. We hope this webinar was time well spent for those of you who joined us today. We'd love to hear about your success stories in streaming audio. Feel free to reach out to us at info@edisonresearch.com with your comments or questions. Allison, thank you so much for your leadership and guidance on this research, and to the whole team over at Amazon Ads for funding such an extensive study. It truly was a pleasure to work with you.
And it's been my pleasure to see this project through to the very end. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thanks. Bye.